You can charge whatever you want for a product as long as the experience is great. Yeah, I mean, you should understand the business because it's poor leakage, right? That's going to spill over because obviously that trickles down to you not coaching your staff, and then the staff isn't supported and they're not going to do well and they're going to want to leave.
What do you look for in that employee that is delivering great customer experience?
Welcome to Start With a Win, where we unpack franchising, leadership, and business growth. Let's go.
What's the secret to unlocking and scaling your business through unbeatable customer experience? Today we find out on Start With a Win. And coming to you from Start With a Win headquarters at Area 15 Ventures, it's Adam Contos with Start With a Win. Are you ready to unlock the secrets to scaling your business through unbeatable customer experiences? Meet Kory Angelin, President of The DRIPBaR, and a mastermind behind some of the most dynamic customer journeys in the health and wellness industry. With a stellar track record as an award-winning fitness executive, published author, and just a go-to guy in the space, he wrote the book, Learn How to Perfect the Customer Experience, and he's the creator of the Powr Sales App. Kory brings a wealth of expertise to the table. He's not just shaping brands, he's redefining customer engagement strategies with unrivaled success. Join us as we tap into Kory's insights and discover how to elevate your business to new heights through exceptional customer experience. Get ready to start with a win. Kory, welcome to the show.
Man, I need you, Adam, I just need to travel with you. And whenever I walk into a room, I need an intro like that. So thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Awesome, man. Hey, you've done a lot when it comes to customer experience, when it comes to leadership, developing sales teams. I want to really dig into that today because our listeners are looking at how do I improve and scale my business for tomorrow? And I know you literally wrote the book on the whole thing. So, first of all, I do want to jump into your history, though, because laying the framework for how we got to this point with you and your customer experience expertise and all of the sales conversations and leadership roles that you've fulfilled. Take us through your journey briefly. How did you get to where you are today to be able to say, I'm going to tell you about customer experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would say it started out me being very selfish in my 20s. And really, when I reflect back on that time, Adam, it was like, I just wanted to drive the most revenue. The problem is I left my team in the wake behind. And, if I'm doing $25,000 a month, but my teammates are doing $3,000 a month, I'm not so sure I'm a great leader. But I'll also say that what has helped me transform the second half of my career is really, I've been in every role possible, man. It's just started out as a part-time trainer while I was in college, became a full-time trainer on the side, right? Worked my way up to assistant department head and regional director. And then I made my way ultimately to some of the executive level positions that I currently have. And so I think it's important to be in those roles because who am I to talk to someone about you should be doing this when you should be walking the floor or you should be making 30 to 50 calls a day when I haven't done it myself. So that's number one is I really pride myself about making sure that I leverage that experience to employees specifically, but then also letting them know you can charge whatever you want for a product as long as the experience is great. And for me, it always comes back to that. And, ultimately, I read a book, which you're probably familiar with, Simon Sinek, very, very huge business mentor of mine. And 10 years ago, I watched his YouTube clip, which is very popular. It's called The Golden Circle. And it's really all about people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And it was really that motto, that phrase, that really made me pay attention to what is a great customer experience. So I'll give you some examples, but in general, it's really about making sure I'm empowering employees and then letting them understand that I've been in their shoes before.
Oh, wow. All right, let's break that down briefly. I want to start with the empowering employees part because you mentioned customer experience. I talked about customer experience on the intro a little bit here, but ultimately we don't get customer experience if the employee's miserable. So take me to where you started we always hear about this hustle and grind culture.
Yep.
And, we want to beat the employee over the head with the accountability 2x4. And I believe in accountability. I think accountability is a framework we have to have, but we can have it with great employee experience that leads to customer experience. Take me through how you developed your leadership around that in order to get to that customer experience.
Yeah. Like many, I had a horrible boss. And so half of what we do, I think, Adam, is understanding like when there was a time in your life that you weren't happy. And so why weren't you happy at work? Mostly because like you had a horrible boss, right? And because I don't know too many people that are unhappy with a phenomenal person that they work for, right?
Right.
And so really for me, it started at Lifetime. Lifetime was the first foray into like the business side of wellness and fitness, right? Because at a Lifetime, and have you ever gone to a Lifetime, Adam? I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, it's a 300,000 square foot building. Our budgets were $300K a month.
Wow.
Right. So we had to drive 300,000 in revenue. We had 47 trainers. We're selling everything from metabolic training tests to heart rate monitors to personal training packages to nutritional supplements. Man, you got to be on your toes, and you have to understand the KPIs of that. The problem is I just had a lack of support, right? And so whenever I used to look at research studies, why do employees leave their jobs? The number one reason, depending on what research study you look at, is I wasn't supported, and the lack of like growth. What can I grow into? And so for me, that's how I felt. And I base a lot of my decisions on sales and operations, the second half of my career, all on feeling. And so tying this back into customer experience, I'll give you a quick example. The first time I thought about customer experience, while all of this was happening early in my career, I was at a Starbucks. I walked into a Starbucks. I talk about Starbucks a lot. My wife hates it. But really, if you think about this, when you walk into a Starbucks, it's literally transformative. Now, I don't think most people view it as that, but I don't even like the coffee. No offense to Starbucks. So there goes my sponsorship. But what do you see when you walk in, right? So Adam, what do you see when you walk into a Starbucks? What are people doing?
Sitting at the couch.
Right? Doing stuff. They're either relaxing or they're on a date.
Or they're working, yeah.
Or they're working. They're getting stuff done in their life. Right? So first, I thought that was fascinating. The second thing you do is you get online and you speak a different language. You say things like grande pike, venti macchiato. You don't say like, I'll have a small, right? It's just like, no, it's like a grande, a tall, right? And then we even call the employees there when we talk about empowering your employees and making them feel special. We don't call them employees. We call them baristas. And so I sort of just started to think about like, I feel good being here. Like, yeah, I mean, it'd be great if the product was great to my liking. I mean, it's okay, coffee. But like, it doesn't deter me from going there. So think about that. Like, you don't even need to have the best product in the world. I mean, if you think about fitness, even though I'm on the wellness side right now, let's be honest, most fitness places, they're all the same in terms of they have weights, they probably have trainers, they have locker rooms, they have music, right? Like, what is the distinguishing factor? And it's like, when you walk in, how is that greeting from that front desk employee, right?
Wow.
How is the rest of the experience in terms of the interaction with people? And so when you boil it down, that's how I view customer experience and relate it to like some of the things that have happened in my life.
That's an interesting point, because I would encourage all business owners, if you have a brick and mortar location right now, or even if you're, chucking a truck and you pull up to somebody's house to do business or whatever that might be, think about what is that first point of contact like? What does it smell like? What does it look like? What subconscious feelings are people getting across? Is the person sitting at the front desk, Miss Miserable
on their phone, not paying attention?
Totally. Yeah. Or do they care about the person that walks in? Do they make eye contact and smile and greet them? Things of that nature. 100% that matters. And it's interesting. When you walk into, I always think of a spa. When you walk into like the spa at the Four Seasons or something like that, what do you notice? You notice that the dripping water. You notice the birds chirping and the sound of that like relaxing music, and then the smell. And then the cleanliness, how everybody's, they're kind of a lot of them are dressed in white or something like that. They give this really pure, clean feeling, but it's amazing. And I think you hit the nail on the head, because I've I've been to gyms all over the world and different fitness centers. There is a customer experience differentiator there. And you almost have to ask yourself, what is yours?
And just going back to like, I've had a horrible boss, and so therefore I know what not to do. Same thing happens in just the experience part, where early on when we talk about what an experience, how does that make you feel? The great example I always use there is a mall kiosk in every mall. So if malls still exist, but there's a kiosk in every mall that if you want to know how to feel in terms of a bad experience, you'll walk by this kiosk, and this kiosk sells sea salt from the Dead Sea. It's this sea
Oh my
salt,
gosh, yeah.
right? Everyone has seen this if you've been in the mall, right? And the reason why it's such a bad experience is they literally grope you. They two guys or two girls are literally pulling you over to scrub your hands with this. And so I was teaching in Florida one time many years ago, and I experienced this, and I remember feeling like, oh, this is like, oh, I want nothing. The product might be amazing. You're never going to get me to buy it. I walked past that particular kiosk, and in the same moment, I saw a Foot Locker. I don't know why I wanted to go in and check out sneakers. The first thing the guy who worked there said to me was, he looked at my sneakers and he said, "Hey, nice Nike TR 2.0 training shoes." I was like, "Well, thank you, man." And he goes, "Do you run?" I go, "Well, actually, I run. I do run. I like to run. I also teach a lot for wellness and fitness. So I'm standing a lot." He's like, "Oh, like I use those also when I work out. I actually go to LA Fitness." And as he says that, his friends that work there start laughing. I go, "Why are your buddies laughing?" And then his buddies chime in and they go, "Yeah, he goes to LA Fitness. He does chest every day," right? And we start this 5-minute conversation. Nothing to do with what they're selling at Foot Locker. Not the great promotion today for like the great sneakers that they're selling today. It was just like normal conversation. It turns out about 7 minutes after that, I ended up buying some 16 pairs of socks because he pointed to a wall and it said, "Buy 8 socks, get 8 for free." Do I need 16 pairs of socks, Adam? Hell no. But I don't know. Like, it made me feel good. I had a good rapport. So again, there's a moment in time where I take that feeling and I figure out what I want a customer not to experience, and therefore what do they need to experience. And so it comes back to, based on just how do I feel and how do I think a customer should feel.
There's a couple of things that I want to point out here. First of all, you mentioned the bad boss experience that we're either perpetuating or making up for. It seems like, you're as a leader in an organization, you're either that bad boss, in which case you're not a leader. Theoretically, you're managing people away. By the way, Jim Collins has always said people join companies and leave managers.
Love it. Yeah.
So are you the one that they're leaving because of that bad leadership experience or bad management experience that you're projecting? And by the way, that's the same experience that the customer's getting. So if you wonder why your numbers suck, it's because your leader sucks.
Yes. Our owners of franchises so quick to blame everything else. But
totally.
And by the way, really, this podcast should be about, I've done some due diligence on you. Didn't you used to run a SWAT team?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. I mean, that's phenomenal, right? So when we talk about real leadership, so, I'll talk a little bit about my franchise experience and my own leadership, but kudos to that, because that's probably where a lot of your wisdom comes from. But yeah, I mean, self-reflecting is a huge thing. Much like yourself, probably, which would be really, interesting, I'm sure, is like there are pivotal moments that I could really remember. And even just getting ready to talk to you today, I was sort of thinking about it. One of my buddies told me early on to fail, don't be afraid to fail fast. Fail fast always stood with me.
Right.
I use it when I speak at conferences. I should really give him more of the credit. I kind of make it seem like I made it up. But you got to take chances, right? So leadership involves failure. You're going to fail because that's just the nature of the game. And you can't be afraid to just toe the line. You got to be able to be bold and make decisions. So that's number one. But then the second thing is when we talk about empowering your team, it's like, I remember I had a really good boss. And I remember first time I ever talked to him, I walk in, it was a 24-hour fitness. I walked in and he said, "Oh, you're Kory?" I said, "Yeah." "Hey, so tell me a little bit about you and your family." And I was kind of caught off guard because I was like, oh, this is like the boss guy. And then I started talking about my wife, and I just got married, and and it was like, we didn't even talk about business. I always try to make that a point. I don't always succeed. But whenever I meet an employee for the first time, it should not be about the KPIs. We'll get to all that stuff. And the last thing I'll tell you is when I think about employees, I've talked a lot about on various platforms where it's like coaching up or coaching out. It's not like a famous phrase in the fitness and wellness industry.
Right.
I always take issue with that because nothing wrong with coaching someone out as long as you put the time into coaching them up in the first place. And I find myself talking to franchise owners a lot about that, where, we're quick to get rid of someone. That's fine. But talk to me about what you did to try to get them to stay.
Awesome. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you go through some of these key points. And yes, franchising is, I just got back from the International Franchise Association conference here not long ago. Franchising's in my blood. I had the conversation over breakfast this morning with another friend of mine who's got nothing to do with franchising. He wanted to know about it. But ultimately, you are 100% correct here. And by the way, franchise people, listen up, and small business people, listen up. I'm going to tell you where you're leaking money right now. And Kory is talking about leadership. The better the leadership in your organization, the longer your employees stay, period. Because they're enjoying being there. It's higher. It puts them higher on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Psychologically, they are finding self-fulfillment in doing what they're doing. If they're gaining that recognition and appreciation for doing that, in addition to obviously the paycheck, but recognition and appreciation falls above a paycheck when it comes to what people want. Believe it or not, happy employees really can make a little bit less and still be just as fulfilled, because they, especially in this day and age, they're going to make up for it on the back end. They're going to sell more. They'll make more commissions. They'll get higher tips or gratuities, things like that. And they get more self-fulfillment. So they will grow as leaders more. The money leakage in your business leaders comes from you having poor management or being a poor manager. Hold up the mirror and let's reflect on how we're doing this. And that causes your churn rate to increase. Therefore, you're always having people in training. Therefore, you always have more staff than you need. That's where the drain in the company is you're overpaying for the number of man hours you have in your business on a regular basis because your leadership sucks. So it's fascinating. And Kory, you've seen this. I've seen this in some of my franchises. We have some stores who can't get enough people hired and they always have people in training. Sure. And we have some stores who have a waiting list of employees and they have minimal staffing necessary because their people are so efficient. Those stores that have a waiting list outperform the other stores all day long. And it comes down to leadership, leading great employees.
This is the knowledge I expect from you, Adam. Like if you keep this up, I'm telling you, I have leadership picture frames on my wall. So Jordan, Arnold, Steve Jobs, Simon Sinek. I'm going to put a picture of Adam up here because no, you're spot on. I mean, and it's funny nowadays, probably you and I who have a lot of experience, it takes us 10 seconds to understand if an owner really understands their business. I mean, as soon as I ask them, how many leads did you got last month? And they're like, I don't know. Like, okay, now I know who I'm doing. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's our job to teach them, right? But you should understand the business because it's poor leakage, right? That's going to spill over because obviously that trickles down to you not coaching your staff and then the staff isn't supported and they're not going to do well and then they're going to want to leave. So you're spot on.
Exactly. And by the way, okay, so here's the next level of leakage in the organization. So you've got human leakage as far as you're putting too much money into what you're paying your people to be there simply because you have too many people there because you have a bad churn rate. Yeah. The second piece is waste. So in organizations that have higher turnover, they have a higher level of waste. That might be if you're in retail, maybe it's returns. Yeah. You've paid out commissions. Maybe you don't have in membership base, like a gym or something like that. You have people who are not re-signing up for the next month or the next year, something like that, because they're fed up with it. Mm-hmm. So you have that waste where you should continue to have that customer flow. Or if you're in food service, you have a lot of food going into the trash can because people who are in training are not as efficient as those who are really at a higher level of perfection in the position. And if they don't care, we have to care. Yeah. Those people throw away food, retail product, things like that at a higher rate than those that care about the business itself. So those are the two levels of waste that we're talking about here. And it all leads to that component of customer experience. If customers have to return stuff all the time, they're not going to be happy with you. If they're not signing up again for their another month of membership, they're not happy with you. So, Kory, how do we take this employee experience and really what is it seems like an employee who's having a great experience, who's delivering a great customer experience is a lot more outgoing and a lot more, I don't know, call it responsible or something like that. What do you look for in that employee that is delivering great customer experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, small things at first, right? So strategically, what I always love to do is to give someone new who I might be working with or coaching some small tasks, right? It might be just like, give me a simple end of day report. Like, what'd you do? And what'll happen is the ones that really do it well will actually give you what you ask. And then the other ones won't. And they'll just say things like my 8-year-old son does, I forgot my homework. I forgot to write it down. Right. And then there's that trend. And so really it's about giving something that's realistic and manageable to an employee or someone that you're coaching to see if they can execute on that. Because if they could, that means they're coachable. And that's all we're looking for. Right. And so, I was talking to a buddy yesterday. We're on the same baseball team and he wants his son to try lacrosse. Never tried lacrosse before, but he's fast. And I said, all you need is to have speed. They can teach you the skill of lacrosse. That should not be your priority. So I think in business, it's as long as you're coachable, we could teach you and sales is the same way. We talk a lot about sales, but no one goes to school to learn how to sell. I have a sports medicine degree. At no point did I walk into my biology class and they said, all right, we're going to teach you how to sell today. It's an acquired skill. You have to fail a bunch of times, right? And even when you do it right, you still only have a 40% closing rate, right? Which is great. And so, yeah, I think for those reasons, I think, giving an employee some realistic goals is what I try to do. And lastly, to button that up, again, specific moments in life. I remember being in a quarterly meeting at Lifetime, and our budgets were $300,000. And it took a lot to get there and a lot of metrics behind it, and a lot of new members to get there, right? But every month we were tops in the nation and 300. This particular quarterly review, they're like, we want to set your budget at $375,000. So I start to do the math.
Right.
It's actually impossible, right? Unless we tripled the amount of trainers we had. And I remember going in there because different departments were going in and out. And what you're supposed to do is say, yes, I could accomplish that, right? It's quarterly review. And I actually said, that's not realistic. I did not look good saying that in front of the higher ups. But I know that's not a realistic goal. So big piece of advice I give owners is your goals have to be realistic. They can be aggressive, but that is a lesson that has stuck with me for 25 years. You have to have realistic goals because if you can do that with an employee and they can hit it, guess what? They're going to feel great about themselves. But if they're continuing to fail, you're going to lose them.
Oh, totally. And this is interesting. And you said something earlier on in this last answer that really hit me like smack between the eyes. And that's, are you coachable? And this is a conversation between you as a leader and senior leadership about, you admitting your level of coachability. And, yes, I'm transparent and I understand what's going on and I know I have coachable people, but I also know what their limitations are. Because, even as a trainer, there's nothing worse than when I'm in the gym and I go to a lot of gyms all over the place and I see trainers come in. And I've seen some really spectacular trainers. I mean, I've trained at Gold's Gym Venice. And
one of my favorite places, bucket list for me when I was 22.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's where Arnold
I was a trainer on the show The Biggest Loser. I trained 3 winners, but go ahead.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger was there. And absolutely. And Mike O'Hearn, I was actually training with him. But it's incredible. And you'll see some trainers come in and they'll put too much weight or they'll throw it around with horrible movements and, cause injuries or something like that to their client simply because they're trying to play drill instructor or something like that. And believe me, I was in the Marines. I had a drill instructor. They didn't try and hurt you. They tried to push you to your limits and then beyond what your psychological limits are, which is what a good trainer does, is physically stretches you, not to the point of injury. But that's what we do as leaders. And if we're going to injure our employees, not physically, but emotionally and professionally, by putting too much weight on that bar, putting too high of a goal that is unrealistic, why, leader, would you allow yourself to do that? Because you're not growing them. Growth comes from getting past that emotional boundary. Growth comes from pushing yourself a little bit beyond what you thought you could do, and then a little more and a little more. It's incremental. Whereas injury comes from just being reckless in how we set those things.
Well, incremental is exactly what we're talking about. Small wins, small wins, and then put forth toward a larger goal. But I'm the quick thought in my head is, I was fortunate to work at F45, one of the biggest franchises in the world.
Yeah.
What I love about what F45 does is that they have 2 coaches for every class, but they're not sitting there like constantly teaching you what to do, because they have monitors that are telling you what to do. They have the TVs that are demonstrating the exercises. It really allows for the trainer to come along and just engage with the person. Like, yeah, they might make a tweak here or there, but it's such a different way of thinking, right? Especially post-COVID, when the boutique fitness really, was at, pre-COVID, before, the COVID hit. But yeah, I think about all those things when we talk about small wins and incremental tasks to have an employee do. So you're spot on.
Awesome. Hey, I want to kind of wrap this whole thing up with and one more quick reflection, on are you coachable? Everybody, I'd encourage you to take a look at the book, The $1 Trillion Coach. It's the story of Bill Campbell, who was a college football coach, and he became the business coach for a lot of the Silicon Valley leaders. So he helped, develop Facebook and Google and a lot of these key Silicon Valley companies by coaching their leaders. And Bill had a question to people before he started working with him. And this is a question we have to ask ourselves also as a leader, and that's, are you coachable? And unless it's a resounding yes, you need to do some reflection and learn how to be coachable, because if you're not coachable, you're going to limit yourself, you're going to limit your employees, and you're going to limit the experience that trickles down to with the consumer. So we all have to be very humble, but very hungry. I mean, it's right here. Stay hungry, stay humble, folks.
I love that.
Key business lesson that I learned from some major CEOs. But take a look at $1 Trillion Coach. It's, basically how the Silicon Valley was built with great business. But Kory, I wanted to ask you, give us a key piece of leadership advice that we can take to work today based upon your experiences that will allow us to hold up the mirror as a leader and allow us to provide better customer and employee experience.
Yeah, I'll give you 2. I mean, number 1, we talked about empowering your team. Get to know your team, number 1. So start to ask some questions about things that you're just curious about when they're not at work. What's your favorite thing to do when you're not here? I guarantee you there's a million people out there that have not asked anything about their employees outside of work, right? Like, awesome. What do you do outside of work? So to me, that is really the most important thing. I don't do that every day now with our team, but certainly there are many times I'm really conscious that I'm going to get on a call today, because now everything's virtual, and just ask about, like, hey, how was your day last night? How was your night last night? What'd you do? What do you have coming up this weekend, or whatever? And then we'll get to the business at hand. I think first and foremost, that would probably be my biggest thing, just in terms of that. Be really successful and make you feel good.
Awesome. And by the way, that trickles down to the customer, because your employee is going to then carry that on. And I know that's one of the key tenets that you teach is, don't talk about you and your product, talk about them and their life, because they're in there because they know the product fits into it somehow.
Yeah, 90-10 rule, right? Everyone has a little tweak on it. 90% conversation should be about the customer. Oh, yeah. Right? By the way, we mystery shop all the time. Every Friday, we'll do a mystery shop call. We invite all the owners. I've done this for many, many years. And I would say 99% of the time, the person that answers the phone that we're mystery shopping, because we're pretending to be a client, doesn't even ask us what our name is. Think about that. Hi, this is Kory. Who am I speaking with? And you would say Adam, right? That does not happen at most places. So if that's not happening with your front desk person, like, your owner is not engaged at all, because they're obviously not aware of that.
Wow. Kory Angelin, President of DRIPBaR, one of the rockstar companies in the health and wellness space. Make sure you check them out if you're interested in a DRIPBaR franchise. Definitely a great organization and doing wonderful things. I'm a big fan myself. Kory, I have a question I ask all the great leaders on Start With a Win, and that is, how do you start your day with a win?
Yeah, it's absolutely releasing some endorphins, probably much like you, right? So 5 a.m., I have my bulletproof coffee. I went keto a couple months ago. Love it. I feel great. I don't feel bloated. I used to eat healthy anyway, but it's just a little tweak on that. So have my bulletproof coffee, get that MCT oil, that grass-fed butter, that organic coffee shot in the morning, at the gym at 5:45, get my workout in. It might be a HIIT workout. Or it might be just, now that we're getting older, a little bit more of a recovery stretch and workout, which is just as effective. But I advocated some form of movement in the morning. Again, it's not for everyone, but it could be. And really, if we talk about winning the day, like you talk about a lot, that's how I do it. Because I always like to say I've accomplished more than most people by 6:30 in the morning. Than anyone does, by 12 o'clock during the day. So for me, that's my go-to.
Awesome. Kory Angelin, some great advice today on customer experience, leadership, employee experience, and how to run a business, folks. I mean, if you didn't listen to these things, go back, listen to this episode. There's a lot of core aspects here that we should all take and do some self-reflection on. And I love how you start the day with a win. If you get yourself right, you can get your business right. One doesn't happen without the other, folks. So keep that in mind. Kory, thanks again for all that you do, and thanks for being on Start With a Win.
Thank you.